If you're looking for a simple lead generation system that is free, can be done by anyone, regardless of where you are in your business, today is your video. All right, Hank, you're here. Tell us all about 50-25-1 and what people need to know about this lead generation source system.
You got it. Well, I figured if I tattooed something on my body, people would take it seriously. Like, this isn't just a theory, it's something that works. And at the time of this recording, we're at the beginning of the year. And oftentimes with real estate agents that run a relationship-based business, we get to this time of the year and we're like, can we do it again? And inevitably, I'd start getting anxious right around Thanksgiving time. And I'd have people like, you're doing so great. And they're like, can I come shadow you? And I'm like, there's no way, because like, I don't know what I'm doing. And here's what we found, because those of us that do a relationship-based business, we've been doing it long enough. We have skill set, we have time on task, yet we didn't necessarily put any numbers around it. And the 50-25-1 was us looking back and connecting the dots with people like you, Alisia, because you've had a relationship-based business long before you came to me. And when we look back and said, okay, what are these people doing? Well, we get in front of people. So we sometimes stick out like a sore thumb. Like, I remember when you used to carry your sign around and everybody was like, well, why are you carrying the sign? And so what is your sore thumb? I drove a Prius with my face on it. So 50 people a day would get off neutral with me. They were either like, that's cool, or that's dumb. They just weren't neutral. And when people aren't neutral, they remember you. So when we look at 50 times 365, that's 18,000 connections. We want 18,000 people to get off neutral. Now, once we get them off neutral, we need an energy exchange. I call it the handshake. You know, you've shaken someone's hand before where you're like, you're a dink. And I'm watching my language based on your audience, just trying to be conscious of it. And there's other times where I've shaken a woman's hand. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just felt the energy that I shouldn't feel as a married man. Therefore, I'm backing off. There's that energy exchange, and that's the 20. And, you know, we've taken other courses that have said, do 20 contacts a day. Well, you're not going to be able to follow up with 20 people. And we know that follow-ups where the gold is. Would you agree?
Yep. And 50, just so people didn't skim over that, the 50, that was the first point in this whole system. Is 50 is just the awareness of people that now we're on to the 20.
Just getting the attention. And so now we're on to the 20 where, you know, you're a sports fan. Who's your favorite team? Are you a sports fan?
Not really.
All right, let's use crabs. Let's say I'm walking down the street and you see me in a crab shirt, where crabs aren't really necessarily a thing. You're like, hey, I like your shirt. That's the equivalent of 50. And then let's say we walk up to the bar and we're ordering drinks and you're like, hey, I'll take an orange juice. And I say, I'm an orange juice too. That's where that energy exchange is, where it's more than just a hey, it's a handshake. Now, from there, let's say in that bar, we go and we sit down and our two families are sitting next to each other. And now Zoe comes up and she meets Charlie and they're just going back and forth. That's where you're starting to experience people more on a human level. And this is the 5 is where you are actually getting enough information where you can put them in your human base, where there's a chance of following up and saying, hey, you know, I love the way that you parent. Are you on Facebook or Instagram? And you find a way where there's going to be follow-up. Now, here's the key. One of those 5 conversations, you want to make such an impact where both parties can remember where you were when you had that conversation, because you humanized it. Let's face it, we're all up. I don't know if you're bleeping. So we're all messed up in some way, shape, or form. But when you can connect at a human level and you can remember 3 years from now where you were, what was going on when you had that conversation, everybody knows 100 people. And so it's simple math. And on my forearm here, if you're just listening, there's math versus drama. When you do 50-25-1 every single day and you get intentional and purposeful with it, you start surrounding yourself with the right people. And we go to Zig Ziglar. Help enough people get what they want, you'll get everything that you want. And let's face it, when you help somebody, it's the law of reciprocity. And if they know somebody, they're going to give a headlock referral, because it feels good to connect 2 people that you know together. So with 50-25-1, we're not looking for leads. We're looking for referrals, because referrals are really where life begins easy, because we're building off the social credibility of other people.
That's where I think so many people get hung up, is they're like, how do I get the business? Where do I get the leads from? You're not after the leads. You're after the relationship and the connection, and whatever you have, they're going to put their self out on the line for you and say, you have to use Hank. You have to talk to Alisia. It's not about the leads.
Now, and think about that. Alisia, if you have 5 years with someone and they know Alisia and how she spends her social currency, and all of a sudden she lights up talking about Hank, instantly the sale's made. So through a relationship business, we sell less. What we've got to do is we just got to deliver that level of service that's expected, which means we have standards. So, we've got to say, hey, if you're not willing to do this, we're not going to be able to get the same standards and I can't work with you. I think oftentimes what we do is we think because someone gives us a referral, we need to lower our standards because we don't want to let them down, where it's actually the opposite. If we lower our standards, we're going to get less results and we are going to let them down.
Yep. We've seen it happen. So you're at the 5 and now you get to the 1. So how do you get to the 5 to the 1?
So how you get to the 5 from the 1 is, this is where you got to be vulnerable. You got to ask the tougher questions. For example, we haven't seen each other for a little while, and right away, I know you well enough where I could ask questions that maybe aren't just surface level. And what I mean by that is, I had another buddy and he had put on a bunch of weight. And I asked him about it and he was like kind of taken back. But at the end of the day, I knew his dad had a heart attack. And I was like, hey, man, like your dad died of a heart attack. And I mean, I care enough about you where it kind of looks like you're on that path. Are you okay? And it was kind of just the jar that he needed. And it wasn't from judgment. It was from me actually caring. And this dude's marriage was hanging on by a thread at the time. He didn't even really know it. He started taking care of himself and everything else started coming in order. And now his marriage is one that all of us look at and like we'd want to emulate. And so the 1 is caring enough to ask the tougher questions or be vulnerable and saying, somebody says, how are you doing? I'm not okay right now. Here's what's going on. And when you're vulnerable, people will open up and feel safe to share their insecurities or what's going on with them. And I think that's where the 1s come from, is when you're not real, it kind of becomes a trendy word these days. Yeah. But actually vulnerable and authentic. And I think that's where it really opens up.
And you've taught that before, that people they're not attracted to like your big wins. They're attracted to your friction, to the things that are going on, to like that, when you have friction with somebody, which I love.
Well, and friction leads to traction. And I have a saying, I care more about people than I do the relationship, because if you truly do that, you're going to have friction in relationships, and you're going to have times where you're going to have to agree to disagree. And sometimes we're doing the best that we can and we still fall short. But true relationships, let's face it, when you're working out, you're going to get sore because you're tearing muscles. And I think relationships are the same way. And if you don't have some struggle and friction through relationships, is there really a relationship, or is it just a proximity because of convenience, and it's not going to last the long run? Like, you and I have probably only talked 2 or 3 times in 2022.
Yeah.
Yet I bet this, if either of us said, hey, can you talk right now? We would have been there without thinking twice.
Yep. And definitely have referenced each other, right? It's not like we don't 100%. Have any involvement. All right. So if you're watching right now, you're like, wait a minute, I just missed the whole system. What just happened here? He just walked through the whole 50-25-1. And the beauty in this is that the caveat is that you just need to be a human to be able to make this work and have a system behind it. And people do this in dribs and drabs, but they're not consistent. And that's when you talk about putting the numbers behind it, the 50, the 20, the 5, the 1, to make sure you're getting that awareness every day, that you're having those conversations every day, that you're connecting every day. Right.
So here's what we did: we did the 6 C's. The 50-25-1 is the middle C's. And then the first C is commitment. The last C is consistency. And I think if you're not reaching your goals, there's a couple things. First, you're probably interested, you're not committed. Lastly, consistency is the key. And I find the people that will win don't have high intensity right away. What they do is they settle in and they say, you know what, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and they do the work, and it's time on task over time.
Yep. You're talking to me. You've taught this to literally thousands of people. The turtle. So if you're saying like, well, I do that, I have conversations, but you're probably not doing it consistently. If you're not doing it with purpose and consistency to get there on the long road.
What are you doing to track it? And here's what I find is people feel like they are, but when we go and interrogate them, like if they were in the court of law, can they back it up? So here's what I'm going to encourage everybody to do. If it's important for the outcome that you're looking for, what is the tracking where you can go back and inspect what you expect so that what you're feeling is actually in process? And what I find with the people that are having the most success is we can go back and we actually have numbers and data to support what they're doing.
Yep. You had said one time, like if I just make it, and I think you're speaking about yourself, one deep conversation, meaningful conversation where somebody remembers where we were, they did something because of me, that's a win. Like if you're on goal, just keep one good conversation a day. And if you're like way behind, 2 conversations a day.
Yeah, because we got to look at the follow-up is where the goal is. So if you're behind goal, we say 50, 20, 10, 1, and hopefully the 1 or it'll be a 1 or a 2. Yet what happens is many people start doing things and then they get busy, especially in real estate, right? That's why they have the roller coaster. What we like about 50, 25, 1 is through doing this with not only myself, but hundreds, if not thousands of people and watching the data, we find that 50, 25, 1 is something that you can do even when you get busy. And there's the key is because if you stop doing what got you busy, inevitably what's going to happen is you're going to fall right back to where you are and you're in that consistent hamster wheel.
And the 50, right? Think of that as like it's a natural funnel, like a human funnel. The 50 is at the top. And if you do enough of the 50 and the 25, you get to your 1. You don't have to worry like, oh, I need to get this conversation. It is the natural progression.
And don't worry about being perfect because we just got to be consistent. What Alisia thinks is a 50, I'll think my 50 is different. Now, it's also when you move to a new goal post or a new pillar post or a new goal that you're going after, your 50, 25, 1 will look different because most likely you're going to need a different team around you or a different avatar, a different person. So know that we got to be consistent on what you count as a 50, 25, or 1 so we can get the math around the equation so that we can no longer experiment. We can say, if I do this, then it will lead to this, and then just do it long enough to get the outcome that you're looking for.
Super important question. How much does it cost?
How much does what cost?
50, 25, 1, this lead generation system.
It costs nothing.
Like
it costs nothing. And that's the thing is it's simple, it's not easy. And there's a lot of different ways of doing it. And obviously there's times where we'll trade money for time. Yet in the beginning, this Alisia, remember back when I had you carry the sign around?
Yeah.
And you carry the sign around, and inevitably when you're carrying a sign around, people are asking, why are you carrying the sign around?
It's a conversation and a connection.
I don't have my listing for the month. And then when they didn't see you carrying the sign around, now it's accountability. And they're like, you got your listing, and you feel like a schmuck if you're not carrying it. You didn't have the listing. And so the key is, how do people know what you do without putting it in their face all the time?
That simple thing of carrying the sign around, people were asking me, hey, are you going to bring your sign? I'm like, I am. They're like, we're going to get a picture. And I'm an introvert, right? So I'm not the person who's going to show up and be like, look at me. But it just gave them an opportunity. They wanted to be in proximity to me. So it gave them an opportunity to.
And what it also did was it gave opportunity to filter themselves out, because the people who didn't understand that you're a mom, you're looking to hustle, you're doing the best that you can. And if anybody who made fun of you aren't your people.
Exactly. Yep.
So the 50, 25, 1 is also filtering people through, because we want to give people the opportunity to self-discover that they're not our people.
Yep. Do you use it now?
100%.
I know you use it all 100%. The time, right?
And what happens is we go through, the 4 quadrants. I'm at an unconscious competence where I'm doing, it's just like when you're driving, when you've been doing 50, 25, 1 long enough, you don't even realize that you're doing it. But now my son, he's 16, I'm going through and watching him drive. I forget how much I just did naturally. And what we want to do is we want to go from an unconscious incompetence to a conscious incompetence to a conscious competence to an unconscious competence. So yes, I do it every single day.
Follow all that. What I wish people could really see and feel, because you've seen it happen and play out. I've been there and I've seen other people feel it and seen it play out, is that it is literally like turning on the faucet. Like when you feel things, you're like, oh, I'm not doing exactly what I'm supposed to. I better get back on my 50, 25, 1 is literally like turning on the faucet to your lead generation.
And here's what I find with people is when you've been doing it consistently for a year, you'll never have to worry about business again. And the key is consistently, because we know that the seeds we plant today might not come. I've got seeds that I planted 5 years ago, actually 7 years ago, that are just now coming to fruition. Yet through the consistency, they took root, and now the fruit's coming. So time on task over time will be talent every single time. And Alisia, your channel here, if you're watching this video and it's the first time you've seen Alisia, do me a favor. Go binge on her stuff. It's unbelievable.
Thanks. And we're going to put your link up here too, because you are rolling with YouTube now.
I am interested. I wouldn't say I'm committed
Interested.
yet, but we've got some great content out there, and we are getting there.
Any last parting words about how to make this happen?
Here's believe in yourself. No, if at any time you don't believe in yourself, myself and Alisia believe in you. And if you believe it, you can do it and you can have it. It just takes time on task. And now is the time. We're moving into the greatest time in our real estate industry ever. And skill set's going to matter. And it's a great time to go thrive and win. It's going to look different, but believe in yourself.
Love it. People need the trust right now more than anything in this market. They're going to go for you for the trust.
Amen.
All right. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any more videos. I have another one coming up with Hank, so you don't want to miss it.